Neff
retired as a vice president, and I wouldn't. And it was
.com. Use my.
Welcome
to the Michael Smerconish program.
Refreshingly independent politics.
Exclusively on Sirius XM's POTUS, channel 124.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Now, here's Michael Smerconish.
You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking. Don't settle.
Steve Jobs, Stanford University, 2005 commencement, essentially saying, follow your passion. How many of us were given similar advice? How many of us have offered similar advice? Scott Galloway begs to disagree. He's the professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. He's a serial entrepreneur. His Professor G and Pivot podcasts, No Mercy, No Malice blog, and Professor G YouTube channel reach millions. He's got another best-selling book on his hands, the recently released The Algebra of Wealth, a simple formula for financial security. One of my favorite guests on radio or television. Love having him anytime he's available. Scott, congratulations on the new book. What did Steve Jobs get wrong?
It's always good to be with you, Michael. When someone tells you to follow your passion, it means they're already rich. And that is, a lot of young people will mistake their passions for their hobbies. I'm 6'3". I've got a great plane of vision. I actually have a decent arm, Michael. I'd like to be quarterback for the Jets.
Hey, by the way, they could use you. After last season, I think they might take you.
Yeah, I'm close. I think I could give it a run. But look, I thought I was going to, when I was 17, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. And chemistry disabused me of that notion. Then I thought I might be a professional athlete. Then I thought, typically young people decide, all right, I really like sports. I really like fashion. I really like the idea of being an actor. The stuff you're drawn to are the romance industries. And these industries typically are young people call passions, typically have an unemployment rate of 98+%. There are the 180,000 most talented actors and actresses in the world belong to the SAG-AFTRA union. And it's not easy to get into the union. You have to be in a commercial. You have to get offered your union card. These are the best. Last year, Michael, 87% of them did make enough money to qualify for health insurance. They made less than $23,000. So I don't want to crush anyone's dreams, but if you're in what I call or pursuing kind of a romance industry, you better kind of ring fence it, give yourself a certain amount of time. And if you're not getting kind of green lights everywhere that you're in the top 1%, I think it sets you back 3 or 5 years. I think there's a lot of people who started out thinking, I want to be in fashion or jewelry design or even photography, and they wake up 5, 10 years into it. All of their friends are making more money, and it's just harder for them. And I think economic security is underrated. And what I tell kids is that your job isn't to find your passion, it's to find your talent. And if you find something you're really good at and you can become sort of a ninja-like master after, the 10,000 hours of perseverance, grit, training, certification, the accoutrements of mastery, economic security, relevance, camaraderie, people being impressed by you, prestige, those things will make you passionate about whatever offered you those things. No kid grows up thinking, I want to be a tax lawyer. But the best tax lawyers in America fly private and have a larger selection set of mates than they deserve, which makes them passionate about tax law. So what I would tell you is ultimately, I ended up in analytics and business intelligence, not what you would call sort of huge sex appeal, like not great talk at a bar. But I'm passionate about being able to take care of my kids and my parents. I'm passionate about today I'm at the Faena in South Beach. And I grew up with no money. Now I don't even know what the hotel bill is. And you know what? It's wonderful. And it makes me passionate about analytics and strategy and the things I do. So what I would say is when you're in an industry that attracts too much human capital, quite frankly, there's just too much competition. and you have to be in the top 1%. I'm suggesting you find an industry where if you're in the top 10 or 20% at some point, that you're going to make millions.
There was a line in the book that jumped out at me that said, the line of people waiting outside to get into the media store is way too long. And by the way, in listening to you, it sounds as if what you're really saying is that Steve Jobs was not so much wrong as Scott Galloway thinks he got it backwards.
Well, first off, he was in computer hardware. I think when he went into the industry, his industry, I'm not sure it was considered a romance industry. And also, I think you should assume you're not Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is that 0.01%. He really is exceptional, but he went into computer hardware, I believe, back in the late 70s and early 80s. And look, here's the thing. People say, well, you're this weird capitalist, Scott, the criticism I get, and you want kids to engage in drudgery. You can't be great at anything you hate. I was never going to be a great investment banker. I hated it. Which immediately meant I wasn't going to be any good at it. What I'm suggesting is that by virtue of the opportunity to be really great at something, you're gonna probably like it. And unfortunately, when you're young, people think sports and music or entertainment or media, well, that's what I like. You explore a little bit, workshop. I went from pediatrician to athlete to investment banker in about 5 years, and then to starting an analytics firm in about 7 years. And I think I did what I was supposed to do. In your 20s, you're supposed to workshop it. You're supposed to, don't be afraid to fail. Very few people know what they want to do, but find something that you could be good at. And this is the important part, in an industry that has a 90+% employment rate. And by the way, that's about 98% of industry. And mastery of anything will make you passionate for it.
Today, you have all the answers, but it's not always been that way. In the book, you say that when you were 42 years old, your first son was born. You had an epiphany moment. You realized you had fucked up. What did you fuck up?
I've always made a lot of money. And I was always under the kind of view that I was such a baller and so talented that at some point my company would go public. I'd have one of my books made into a movie, that the big win was coming. And I even took my company public and on paper. And I want to be clear, I talk about numbers. I can't stand when people don't talk about numbers. I think being quote unquote discreet about money is an attempt by the rich to keep the poor down. Because I think if people were more transparent about their money, there'd be more pressure on rich people to pay their taxes and pay their people well. And by the way, your boss knows exactly how much everyone is making, but the asymmetry of information cedes advantage to him. Where I screwed up was I didn't diversify. I spent everything I had, all my current income. I saved a little bit, but not a lot. And then when my oldest son had the poor judgment to come marching out of my girlfriend, it was right around the great financial recession. And when I was in the labor room, what are they called? The birthing room, delivery room, excuse me. I was so nauseous, Michael, I couldn't stand. And they thought it was because he's not good with blood or childbirth. It was because I thought I'd failed. I'm like, here I am, 40. I've been so blessed with so much opportunity. I've made so much money. But because I was that idiot that always doubled down on the one company I was involved in, because anything I was involved in must do really well because I'm awesome, not recognizing the market is indiscriminate, not recognizing the power of diversity, not saving more than I should have, I was just so upset. I realized I felt like I had failed my son on his first day. It was really humiliating and upsetting. So a lot of this is a memoir of be like me. It's a lot of it is like, just take it from me. Avoid some of the mistakes I made. Make a few simple. If I had just put away a little bit of money every month, and I had a lot, it wouldn't have been that hard for me. I would have ended up with a few $1,000,000 in the bank. Even if Red Envelope, my publicly traded company, didn't go Chapter 11 because of a series of weird events in the great financial crisis. And I wouldn't have had that kind of stress. I could have been more supportive of my son's new mother. I could have been much less emotionally and mentally stressed. And so just a little bit of discipline in your 20s and 30s, a little bit of diversification, a recognition of how fast time will go, a recognition no one's as concerned with your stuff as you are, could have put me in such a better place. And instead, I lack that maturity. I lack that perspective. I lack the skills to make some key decisions. And here's the thing. I think more Americans are more like me than not me. So this is really kind of a memo to my younger self, the things I did right, the things I did wrong.
Scott Galloway's brand new book is called The Algebra of Wealth. I think you sum up in this one paragraph the whole thesis, and it comes at the end. Find something you're good at that people will pay you for and go hard, really hard at it. Spend less than you make so that you can deploy a platoon, then a division, then an army of capital that fights for you and loved ones in your sleep. Diversify so that you can endure the unknown that surrounds us and have a long-term perspective. Embrace the wisdom to recognize time will go faster than you think. You also identify in the book the big lie that despite your own work ethic, you say working hard does not equal character. What does that mean?
Well, I used to think when I was really worried about my company or I wasn't in an economic position that if I just spent a few more hours at the office, and I'm not suggesting you don't work hard. I think balance is a myth when you're young. If you aspire to be in the top 1 or much less the top 10% of income earners, you're going to have to do pretty much nothing but work for 20 or 30 years. I think that's just the reality of the competitive marketplace. But character, if you look at, there's, that study that you are kind of the average of your 5 closest friends. You end up the same body mass index, the same politics, you support the same teams, you live in the same neighborhood, you even make the same amount of money. What's interesting is that one of those people, despite all of them making the same money, will be much wealthier than the rest. And this is really what the book's about. What are the character traits, the strategies of the person who didn't make much more money than everyone else, but ended up much wealthier when they were our age? And a lot of it is kind of counter to this myth of the following, that rich people are inherently, if not bad people, just tougher and meaner and more aggressive than everyone else. I have found in my research that's not true, actually. The people who are wealthy generally are high character people that establish and collect allies along the way. That they're put in a room of a lot of opportunities, even when they're not in that room. That people are thinking about them. Google did an interesting study when they open a job description or job position for product planner. They get 200 CVs within 24 hours. They shut it off. They invite in 20 of those people, 10%. And 80% of the time, the one person that gets the job has someone internally already at Google who is a friend advocating for them. If one of the keys to in your 20s is with your spare time, try and be as social as possible, because you want people to be trying to help you out. You want banks to give you the benefit of the doubt because you're a good person. You want people to really want you to raise money. You want to be someone thinks about, says, Lisa would be great at this. I'm going to follow up with this person I just met who said there's a job opening. Then I'm going to connect her with Lisa. Then I'm going to call the person back and give them a personal endorsement. Typically speaking, very economically secure people are really high character people. And what I say is wealth is a full person project. And it comes down to the following. The biggest sources of financial insecurity, or if you want to rob financial security from the jaws of financially, if you want to rob defeat from the jaws of victory, the fastest way to do that is divorce. And I've been through this. I lost 60% of my net worth overnight. You have to split your assets, then you're supporting 2 households, you lose 60%. You're a forced seller at what is almost exactly the wrong time. And then also show me a business that flies apart, that's doing well. I'm going to show you a professional divorce. I'm going to show you the principles of the company go to war with each other. So if you want to be wealthy, you better bring a great deal of generosity and forgiveness to both your personal and your professional relationships. I think that the best way to kind of, smart people get poor fast. The rich way to being poor is leverage or quite frankly, being an asshole. You want and it's a myth. Most very wealthy people have managed to have really strong personal and professional relationships their entire life. Wealth is a full person project.
I appreciated so much of the practical advice that I got in the new book. I found this of interest. You say that high-performing people have something in common. What is it? Exercise. Explain.
This is not a rental. This is your ability to work 16 hours straight, stay focused. And when I say this is your health. It also connotes success. When you come into a room and you're physically fit, it immediately indicates to employers and quite frankly to potential mates that you are disciplined, that you can commit to something, that you take pride. If you look, you need to dress well. I mean, as I say this, looking like a total schlub, but when you come into a company and you dress well and you're fit, it says that most likely anything that leaves my desk will look pretty close to damn perfect. And of the 500 Fortune 500 CEOs, the thing they found they had the most in common wasn't even that their race, it wasn't that their sexual orientation. 494 of the 500 worked out at least 4 times a week. It's just such an incredible advantage to be fit. When I got to Morgan Stanley, I wasn't as well educated as the rest of my analyst class. I wasn't as well skilled. I just didn't. I was outclassed by my analyst class. I'd been a bit of a screw up all my UCLA years. I was immature. I just didn't have the same skills. But I had road crewed in college. I had nobody waiting for me at home. I didn't have a girlfriend. I was living with my mother. I didn't have dogs. So every week, you got to lean into your advantage. What's your advantage? Well, the few advantages I had at 23 was my fitness. So every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., and unfortunately back then the culture valued this, I would come in at Tuesday at 9 a.m. and I would stay at work until Wednesday at 5 p.m. I'd work, and I did that every week. I worked 36 hours straight. And here's the thing, it wasn't that hard for me. I was young and I was in amazing shape, and I didn't have anything else, which is sort of pathetic, but it's true. And you know what it said to my colleagues? It said that I came to play. It said that I was committed. It said that I was serious. And more than, I'm not suggesting anyone kill themselves. What I'm suggesting is lean into your advantages. And what you want your advantage, one of your advantages to be, something you can control, is be the fittest version of yourself. It's just you're going to be more emotionally stable. You're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to be able to work harder. This is a common line, probably the most common attribute of really successful people in business is they take their health and their fitness seriously.
I'm not giving away the algebra of wealth entirely for free, but Scott, thank you for indulging me. One more subject, because this rang so true to me based on my own personal experience. You say, get to a city, go to the office.
2/3 of economic growth is going to happen in just 20 cities over the next 30 years. And as we know, once you start collecting dogs and kids, it's hard to stay in the city. So play to your advantage. If you can get to a tiny little apartment in a big city, get there, because you're going to have 3-5 times the opportunity you would have in a smaller or medium-sized city. And a lot of your success isn't your fault. It's random opportunities that bump into you. And you want to bump into more of those opportunities. And the way you do that is in the density of a city. So you get to a city, and then as a young person, oh my gosh, absolutely. The office is a feature, not a bug. Keep in mind, there'll be at least 3 people eligible for every promotion. And the decider will make that decision based on a relationship. And relationships are a function of a proximity. Do they see you in the office? Have they had coffee with you? Do they joke with you in the morning? You absolutely want to get into the office. It's a great place to find mentors, to find friends. It's also a great place to find mates. HR doesn't like to talk about this, but 1 in 3 relationships started at work. And so you're going to shut off 1/3 of your romantic opportunities. And also 38%, you're 38% more likely to get promoted when you're in the office. So you're taking care of kids, you're taking care of parents. You have to live an hour outside of town so you could buy a house with 3 kids. Fine. See if you can find a company that'll let you go hybrid. But oh my gosh, again, lean into your advantage. If you can get into the office every day, get in there. And also, especially for young men, Michael, who mature later, I needed the guardrails of an office. If I didn't have to get into the office by 9 a.m. every day, I think I would have smoked pot every night. I'm not sure I would have ever showered if I didn't have to put on a tie and look decent. I had people after meetings pull me aside into a conference room and say, don't say those things. Or you really screwed up here. And that feedback was so important for a 23-year-old male, much less a 23-year-old Scott Galloway. And it was a blessing. Had I not been in the office, I think it just would have stunted my growth. So for a variety of reasons, get into the office while it's easy, and it's easiest for young people. The office is a feature, not a bug.
On a future installment, you'll come back and tell us about that chapter of your life when you were 23, working at Morgan Stanley, driving a BMW 320i with the swim goggles hanging from the rear view.
Even though I didn't swim. It's all about signaling at that age, right? It's all about, I everything I did, I hate to admit this, but I think it's more true of more men than we liked. Everything I did was for women. It was either to impress my mom or strange women I hadn't met yet.
Right.
Full stop. That was everything. That was the filter through which I made every decision.
And look at you now. Hey, Scott, that was excellent. Thank you so much. The book is terrific. I don't know if you can see my thumbed up copy, but there's just so damn many things in here that jumped off the pages at me. And I appreciate our relationship. That's what I really wanted to say to you. I really appreciate you. So thank you for being here.
Well, Michael, I said yesterday to my wife, I was feeling so blessed. I've had such a good week. And I said, there's people that just set you up for success. And I said, it's the Bill Maher team that set you up for success. Stephanie Ruhle really wants me to be successful. And I said, Michael Smerconish sets people up for success. You're not trying to do gotcha moments. You trade off a lot of your own airtime. You really do try to set other people up for success. So I really, right back at you, brother.
Thank you for saying that. Scott's new book is called The Algebra of Wealth, A Simple Formula for Financial Security. I'm going to take calls on a number of things that he said. I'm particularly interested in his reversal of Steve Jobs' advice, and also something that you've heard similarly from me. I love telling the stories of spending 10 years in Center City, Philadelphia, trying cases, being a plaintiff's attorney, practicing law. And I've filled in the past the full complement of those experiences, the coworkers, the relationships, the shoe shine, because yes, I made it part of my daily routine. Having a cocktail with somebody at the end of the day, having a lunch partner occasionally if time allowed, all of that gone. And so too the cottage industry that supported those office towers and gave vibrancy to a city. And Scott sums it all up, not the least of which is to talk about mentoring when he says, get to a city and go to the office. Truer words never spoken. Call me. I'm at 855-486-1776, 855-486-1776.